In the gleaming city of Qasr al-Bayan, known for its towering libraries and scholarly debates, there was no voice more respected than that of Sheikh Farid. His sermons in the Grand Mosque were events, drawing crowds that spilled into the courtyards. He spoke with a golden tongue, his words weaving intricate tapestries of Quranic verses and hadith, condemning vice and praising virtue. His beard was silver, his posture erect, and his eyes held a piercing certainty that could silence any doubt. But beneath his piety lay a deep, gnawing need for control and a terror of being exposed. To maintain his position, he had begun a clandestine practice. He kept a leather-bound journal. In it, he recorded not his own reflections, but the secret failings of his most prominent congregants. The merchant who occasionally lapsed in his prayers during busy trade seasons, the widow who sometimes listened to music in her solitude, the young student who struggled with whispers of doubt. He never confronted them with compassion. Instead, he stored their weaknesses like currency. His public target was a young, physically imposing brickmaker named Rashid. Rashid was a man of simple faith and rooted in the sweat of his brow and the consistency of his 5 daily prayers. He was beloved in the poorer quarters for his strength and his readiness to help anyone in need. But Rashid had a past. Before finding his faith, he had been a formidable fighter, a fact Sheikh Farid had discovered. From the pulpit, the sheikh began to weave subtle warnings about wolves in sheep's clothing and the unwashed faith of the common brute. He never named Rashid directly, but his descriptions were pointed enough that eyes would drift toward the powerful brickmaker who would sit in the back, his head bowed, his cheeks burning with a shame he did not fully deserve. The climax came during the month of Ramadan. A devastating fire broke out in the warehouse district, threatening to consume the city's vital grain reserves. The crowd panicked, but Rashid, drawing on his old strength and his new courage, organized a bucket brigade. He charged into the burning structures again and again, pulling out sacks of grain and helping trapped people to safety. In his final, heroic entry, a burning beam fell, trapping his leg. He was pulled to safety, his body scorched and his leg badly broken. The city hailed him as a hero, but Sheikh Farid, feeling his narrative of the unworthy brute slipping away, stood before the gathered community the next Friday. "We thank Allah for the safety of our grain," he began, his voice silken. "And we see how He can use even the most rough-hewn instruments for His purpose. But let us not be deceived by a single act of bravery into forgetting a lifetime of sin." This hero has a history of violence. His body bears the scars of his former godlessness. True piety is not born in the heat of a moment, but in the quiet, consistent submission to Allah, day after day. The sermon was a masterpiece of hypocrisy. He used the language of faith to undermine a true act of faith. He praised Allah while poisoning the well of a good man's reputation. Rashid, lying on a pallet in his simple home, heard of the sermon and felt a despair deeper than any physical pain. The truth, however, was about to find its voice. The Sheikh's own daughter, Aisha, a young woman of sharp intellect and sharper integrity, had grown increasingly troubled by her father's private arrogance and his cruel treatment of Rashid. While searching her father's study for a medical text to help the injured, horrified, she read the cold, clinical accounts of her neighbor's private struggles. She saw her father not as a spiritual guide, but as a collector of souls, building his own minaret upon the rubble of their dignity.